It's kind of thrilling in an exhausting kind of way to just see everybody online again tonight, and to welcome everybody who's been with us here during the day, but also to really welcome everybody who's able to join us this evening. So we've come to the end of our third day. I think we're feeling fairly cooked, but up for a little more baking, I hope. So it's just great to see everyone, and looking forward to hearing Flint, and so appreciative of Flint weaving these days together, the receiving the talks and being able to thread onto them. And it's been such a joy to co-create across such a great distance, our weaving together. So I'm really grateful for that, Flint. Thank you very much. And over to you.
Of course, thank you. It's been a great pleasure. It's a certain joy, because it reminds me of training days when I was in a temple or monastery where we'd get up so early, because I would get up at 5 o'clock here and go online and find the talk that had happened in the morning recorded so I can listen to it. And then in the last little hour or so, I can make sure I am responding to the talk that preceded my time. And because of the time difference, it's just a lovely early morning practice of listening. And I told Trudy when I came on earlier, the talk that she and Josh gave earlier today kind of did me in early in the morning. So I have my tissues handy because I was so tenderized by it, you know. One of the things that I would like to do in the kind of spirit of where we are here at the end, and the way in which we've been tasting and digesting and feeling the essence of these reminders from Suzuki Roshi about the most important thing or the most important point, and learning about how Zen mind, beginner's mind, actually came into being and what it's done over these years. And we don't often in this Sangha do the more traditional chants that precede and follow a Dharma talk. But I'd like for us to experiment with that a little bit now. So I'm going to screen share the traditional things that are done before and after, and I'd like for you to chant it, which you'll just hear yourself primarily, and then if the room is unmuted, we could hear your voices in there. You might want to do that. You don't need to see that. You see that okay? So just this the opening verse, and we'll just go through it here for a second without us chanting it together. The usual translation that I'm familiar with is that unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. So let's start by just saying it together, and then I'll make a couple of comments, okay? All together. An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. So as you can imagine, if you were a person sitting in my seat and people are chanting this, and if you have a personality structure like mine where you think, oh, unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect, but that's the Dharma, that's not me, or Josh, or Trudy, or anyone else. But the verse is saying that this simple and magnificent truth is rare, and we're endeavoring to express it as best we can, all of us, all the time. And for those of you that aren't familiar, a kalpa is an infinite amount of time, basically. One of the analogies that is used in the ancient texts is that a kalpa is the amount of time in which, if a bird holding a silk scarf in its beak dragged the scarf across the top of a mountain like Mount Everest, it's the amount of time it would take to wear the mountain down. So it's an exaggerated, extreme amount of time. An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to. Remember, Josh was talking about to have ears to hear and eyes to see and listen to. I vow to taste, probably one of the most primitive sensory organs. Not understand, not figure out, not philosophize about, but to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. And I bring it forward today because I think this is part of what we've been engaged in for these last few days is tasting. I'm really taken with and fond of the quote that Josh brought this morning, in which Suzuki Roshi said, "I can't give you anything but my spirit of Zen. You have to find your own way." And to pair that very personal statement all I can give you is my spirit of Zen, an unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma. You have to find your own way to taste the truth. And I believe we can probably feel the spirit of this kind of practice opening and blossoming like the peonies that were spoken about today over these 3 days. Probably some of you can feel the breeze on your cheeks, as in this Sumi painting in the garden as you walk, and there at the story. And by the way, those of you who are not in Lancaster, we're not talking about a story. There's a person whose last name was Story. That building is named after, just so you know what we're talking about. You can feel the spirit of practice on the breeze as you walk outside, or as the warmth of the sun slides across the room during the day into the evening. We rest in the unique breeze of reality, as it says in the Blue Cliff Record. The Katagiri call it the rhythm of reality, touching our heartstrings. Our practice life together, wherever you are, opening your eyes, opening your ears to receive the truth of the Tathagata. The Tathagata is a name that's given to the Buddha. It means the thus come one, the one that thus comes. So it speaks about the Buddha, but it also speaks to reality arriving in your own heart, in your own mind, in your own body. Thus comes. and it's rarely met with. So having it to see and listen to remember and accept, I vow. I vow. The seeing and the listening and the remembering and the accepting are functions of vowing. The verb, it's not a thing you get, it's an active process to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words that then come through us. They have to. That's part of why we practice, is to keep this channel open, to carry it forward, to offer it. It's not something to have and put on your bookshelf or on your altar. It's a vow. And that's why you may have seen when I screen shared, maybe I should put it up again, the chant before the lecture, but then after the talk, and we'll do this one at the end, may our intention equally permeate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. May the intention of what we're doing here every day, wherever you are, equally, without any reservation or separation, permeate every being and every place with the goodness of awakening, the true merit of Buddha's way. And then after each Dharma talk, we would then recite the Bodhisattva vow. So in an attempt to, share the spirit of practice and to touch on our theme, much of what I've done in this series for me is to take the teachings that Josh and Trudy have offered, and then also to weave in living memories and stories of practice that connect to this lineage, since we're studying Suzuki Roshi's words. And most of them reflect my own practice and my own life at some point. And I'm sensitive to it. I'm not doing that to call attention to myself or to be self-centered, but calling us into the spirit of Zen, but through an actual life, through someone's actual living experience, just as Josh and Trudy and many of you have, I'm sure. Because that's all I can offer, is my own spirit. And then you have to find your own way. So I want to start with another, pardon me, another one of those memories and experiences. And, I'm old enough now and have done enough of these talks in so many sanghas that I don't really give you fresh material. It's things that you heard before sometimes. But I couldn't step aside as I offered this spirit at this time at the end of retreat, because Anna, who was my Benji, my assistant when I was head student in 2002, 21 years ago at Austin Zen Center. And it was at the end, of course, at the end of a practice period, at the end of Sesshin, and the exit ceremony for the head student, the Shuso, was happening. And so she wrote about the ending and also about what happened during, and the spirit or the essence of that breeze of reality that seemed to open in it. And it's very appropriate for those of you in the UK, because it starts, the first line is, "Now the rain has stopped." Now the rain has stopped. We are weary and aching. The air is lighter now. There's a lightness to time. It no longer flows through the blood vessels like lava, but flows through us as if light could flow through us. And I want to shout, stop. Leave us here in this bubble of light on the last of these days. In the bleached out sadness of the late afternoon, quivers on the edge of evening, this late afternoon will never be again, though there will be others. I gulp it in with greedy breaths that only leave me swallowing air. We sat here in the mornings, most mornings, and watched the first light slide across the wall as the cardinals in the garden sang the dawn, and in the evening, the dusk faded into darkness, as dusk will. But I believe if it hadn't, we would have sat there just the same. Now I must let go of these things which I negotiated with such trickery, a trickery that ultimately got me nowhere, as I counted down the days and made bargains with sleep and time, pain and boredom. Now I find myself clinging, so I pay twice for what costs nothing. These things time gives and then takes away. If you could be Shuso over and I could be Benji again, then I would grumble and fidget my way through a whole new set of mornings, defying the falling silence of the morning twilight of the world, brand new each time. Just sometimes, when the Zendo was filled with stillness, held in our empty hands, and I was sitting staring at the chipped paint, the pale shadows on the wall, sometimes for a moment, it was enough. That moment was everything. Then sitting next to you, I found myself far from the place I thought was home. You said in Pali, faith means to place the heart upon. So then, might the heart open like a flower and all its misshapen, worm-eaten beauty? On the Kaisando, one flower droops. I point to it, I think it needs replacing. But you tell me, it's bowing. I hope as you hear the words that they resonate with something of the spirit of practice, of these important things, these most important points. It's so beautifully offered. Then on the last day, like we're in that right now, we reflect on what this has been and how we've negotiated with all the difficulties of being here and being online or getting up early or managing traffic, sitting with pain, boredom, all the things that she mentions, how the light changes through the day, and how through all that negotiating, I love it where she says, now I find myself clinging, so I paid twice for what cost nothing. And then in the very, very ordinary way, she describes sitting facing the wall. Of course, we were in the formal Zendo, so we're looking at the wall with the chip paint and the shadows. Sometimes each moment it was enough. It was everything. A bit like Mary spoke about yesterday. And to see the flowers change over the week, the few days at least we're together. And the Zindo we have at the retreat center close by at Huihualana, it's a yurt, so it's a round structure. And often Aaron will put a kinzan, which is like a low iron um, holder. It holds water, and there's a little spikes, little frog in the middle. And he'll, if they're blooming, he'll take agapanthus. They're beautiful balls of blue flowers, and put 3 of them in and put it in the center. So as we sit in the circle, that's it, holding the center. And he'll get one that's full and robust and big, and one that is about half open and then a bud, and set them there. And then as we sit for a week, they continue like the peonies. And the big ones start to fall apart, and the others open further. And just like in this poem, a person came to me and said, I think we need to fix the flowers because they're starting to fall apart. I said, no, just witness them. This is the great matter. Watch them and see yourself. Just as I said to Anna that morning, the flower was leaning over her, and she said, oh, I guess we need to change it. And I said, oh, it's just bowing. And so even today, like she said, I want to shout, stop. Leave us in this bubble of light on the last of these days. And there's one more important point, one more important thing to add to our list of the many that we've had. I remember, I think we noted there were over 300 of them in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, or in Suzuki Roshi's other talks. And this last one, I had made some notes about this and thought to focus my talk in this direction. And then, of course, Josh and Trudy began to pick it up today in that unspoken way that we resonate. And that is the most important point, or the most important thing, which is the great matter. The everyday, ordinary matter of birth and death. So I was surprised, but also not surprised to hear them speak about this. As Josh brought it forward with several of our ancestors and friends, and Trudy's tender reflections on the other Trudy. So many unspoken and mysterious things guides us, I suppose. And so our tagline, the most important thing is remembering the most important thing. And in the Zen tradition, the great matter is sometimes spoken of as the most important thing. We have it on the Han, that the verse of the Han that's on that piece of wood as it's struck in the morning to call us to the Zendo in a temple. Great is the matter of birth and death. All is impermanent, quickly passing. Wake up, awake, don't waste this precious life. That's the call every day to every bit of Zazen. Great is the matter of birth and death. In some ways, this is what all spiritual practices guides us toward. But it isn't just facing death. It's everything. It's much, much more than that. You know, Rilke famously said, love and death are the great gifts that are given to us. Mostly they are passed on unopened. Love and death are the great gifts that are given to us. Mostly they're passed on unopened. And I think, as maybe you do, that they're passed on unopened because they're frightening. You know, there's the sort of well-known joke, Woody Allen, he says, I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens. And it's funny, but it's also pointing to our avoidance of death, which is an avoidance of life. And when Rilke says love and death are the great gifts, we begin to find that they're not so far apart, you know. The way Suzuki Roshi spoke of it, at least at one moment, he said, life is like getting onto a small boat that is about to sail out to sea and sink. Sometimes I've heard it, life is like getting into a small boat and rowing to the middle of the pond, knowing it's going to sink. It's like we know this, but we don't really know it so deeply. And it sounds a bit, harsh or frightening, but it's really not. It's if you know it's going to sink, that doesn't stop you from getting in it because there's no avoidance. You get in and row with everything you have and enjoy every day with every sort of weather and move with it as deeply as you can. One of the early students of Suzuki Roshi, Silas Hoadley, he reported that Suzuki privately, with a little twinkle in his eye, said once, I came here to destroy your mind. And he was saying that to everyone. And of course, what he meant was to destroy this barrier that's erected as we construct this sort of artificial self, I guess it is in some way. At least the contractions and strictures which are this bracing. There's at Tassajara, because it's a long valley, some of the buildings are quite far apart, and the residences for the regular monks, which I was way down at the end, it's hard to hear the Han from the Zendo in the morning. And so there's something called an echo Han. And I was asked to do this job a few times. So there's the Han at the Zendo, and then halfway down the valley, there's another one. So when you're that second one, if you hear it, when it's finished with its, you do it and it passes it on, passes the sound down so people further down can hear it. And on that one, there's a different verse. It's the same verse, but it's a different translation that Norman Fisher had written on it. So we're accustomed to the great is the matter of birth and death, all is impermanent. This one says, birth and death are serious. Everything changes. Wake up. Don't waste your life. We're passing on the essence as it moves down. But hopefully, unlike what Rilke says, we're opening the gifts because we come and sit. We come to the Zendo in response to the request and sit. We get in the boat, knowing where it's going. And not just for us, and not even primarily for us, but because of what it does in the world, what it offers in the world, what it offers to each other. And one of the great ancestors that was spoken about this morning, Josh spoke about, was Jenny Bennett, who was a marvelous and determined and unusual woman in the ways that he also spoke of. So I was still living in Texas at the time that she had her diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, which was a first diagnosis, stage 4, which is not uncommon for pancreatic cancer. It's difficult to detect early. And she was a physician herself. So she knew the situation, she knew what it meant, and she was kind of surprised. And over the very few weeks and days, to tell you the truth, that she was ill, we would talk frequently by phone or online a little bit. We weren't doing that so much then. And besides, she couldn't navigate it. And she talked about the joy of being with her grandchildren and the diagnosis. Like she knew that the sinking was coming sooner, so she was oddly freed up. And I said I wasn't going to cry to myself. You know how this is. So we talked pretty frequently. And then just a few days before she died, I was here in Hawaii at Hui Holana doing a retreat with Donna Martin, which we had done for, gosh, by the end, 21 years. One of our other great ancestors who's still with us and great teacher. And so I talked to Jenny just a few days before she died. She was still quite robust and we were yakking. But then um, I was awakened by a phone call in the middle of the night, you know, this time difference thing. And it was a call from Jenny's children who were at her bedside and they were sort of beside themselves because she was struggling, agitated, having difficulty dropping her failing body. I was thinking of Trudy, speaking of Trudy Dixon, how she fiercely was riding the pancreatic cancer, her cancer, excuse me, her breast cancer to the end. And I think it was like that with Jenny. And so her family called me and I saw who it was and I took the call and I was standing out on the porch of the cabin in the middle of the night looking up through the palm trees at the moon. Um, and so I spoke to her. They held the phone next to her and she made some kind of responsive noises. But this was one of those true moments where, you know, all I could offer was the spirit of the practices we'd shared, which is basically our love, you know. She was going to have to find her own way. Like those words that Suzuki Roshi said in Trudy Dixon's eulogy that you heard earlier today. He said, speaking to Trudy Dixon, you have completed your practice for this life and acquired genuine warm heart and pure and undefiled Buddha mind and joined our Sangha. Jenny, same. All that you have done in this life and in the past life became meaningful in the light of Buddha mind, which was found so clearly within yourself as your own. So standing there that night, I felt really helpless, but I was needed. This is how we find ourselves in our Bodhisattva vow. Small and frail sometimes and helpless, but needed. I'm fond of quoting a line from Mary Oliver in her poem, The Buddha's Last Instruction, where she says, clearly I'm not needed, yet I find myself becoming something of inextricable value. Speaking to the two sides of form and emptiness. Clearly I'm not needed in this larger picture, but yet I find myself becoming something of inextricable value. And this is what we learn, not just in powerful moments like this one, but in every moment, if we pay attention, if we listen to the Han. So as I said, she and I talked just a few days when she was kind of still herself, but she declined so quickly. So I offered myself that night through the tiny speaker in the phone. And she offered hers as she flickered out. So in the cabin there later, I wrote to her, and then later I did speak these words in Sheffield. And so I'm going to read them again in the spirit of our practice and to honor this final, most important point. So please forgive me if it's rough. Like I said to Trudy the other day, what the hell happened to us? Why are we like this, now? Dear Jenny, I cannot believe that you're gone. I'm writing this as if I was speaking directly to you because I'm half a world away. And although this may be read before many lovely people at some point, at this moment, it's just you and me. I'm sitting alone on the hillside in Hawaii where we last spoke when you were still embodied. It was so good to hear your voice one last time, still with moments of clarity and humor. And finally, to have the opportunity to express our mutual love and gratitude as you faded. It's not extravagant to say that you changed my life. Your commitment to bringing Hakomi to the UK set in motion something that is now carried by a larger community. But without your initial foresight and dedication or dedicated effort, I don't believe it would have happened in the same way. You also encouraged and participated wholeheartedly in our meditation retreats throughout the UK and in Switzerland, helping me find my way. Helping me find my way as a new teacher among a beautiful Sangha. Later, you took up my suggestion to consider bringing IFS to this community, and that work has flourished. Each step of the way, you offered me and many others opportunities that would not have been otherwise. And for all of that, I'm eternally grateful. But it is our friendship that goes the deepest. You offered your loyal care and loving support to me, no matter what the circumstances. You also allowed me to love you, even though it was not always easy for you. You wanted to be free, so you helped others, like a true bodhisattva. That they might experience more freedom and joy in their lives. You honored me by letting me care for you, even when it felt to you like pain. Knowing it was the only way forward toward your own freedom. Now you are completely free. Go with my love. I cherish yours. So this is one expression, it's one story, but this is the spirit. This is the breeze, this is the resonance. This is the way it moves through us. This is the great matter. That only exists if we live it with our one precious life. And just as students and scholars have done their content analysis of Suzuki Roshi's talks and find the most important thing or the most important point over and over, I've made our list. I've gone back over the talks that I've given in these last 3 days and the notes I took from Josh and Trudy. The most important things we've spoken of, and some of them are Suzuki Roshi's words, but this is what I came up with as a reminder here at the end. But still, the fresh breeze, it's our love letter. So I'm just going to go down the list that I made of what I found and maybe make a few comments. Now I have to find my list again. Where did it go? And they're just phrases, pieces. Resume our original nature. And think of these as what we've actually done. We come together to resume our original nature, to take up where we left off, to continue. And also another statement that was similar that came forward, to resume our boundless original mind. But I love the word resume. To take it up again, to when the bell rings, to sit again, when the clappers clap, to walk again, and then to come back, and to come back online, and to come back in person, to go home, take care of our lives, to resume our original nature. Just as when we drop our bodies, as the boat sinks, maybe we resume our source. But while we're embodied, the next one on my list was to appreciate our life. Have you appreciated these days? Have you appreciated each other? You appreciated the teachings that we've reflected on? Appreciated your own willingness to sit and to walk, to care for the Zendo, and to care for each other, to care for your lives wherever you are, to appreciate your life. And Suzuki Roshi, one of the first things we mentioned was the most important thing is to practice Zazen with a group. And we've done that. We continue to practice Zazen. We're practicing it right now in this way. And then there was that unusual phrase that got my attention, to remain as quiet as our original nature. And it doesn't mean to be quiet. To resume our original nature and to find the deep, profound stillness and silence there, even in the midst of the lorries going down the road outside, or the sound coming through the walls, wherever you are. Or the loudest clamor of all is the noise in your own mind. To remain as quiet as our original nature. And not only to appreciate our life, but next to appreciate beginner's mind, to always come back to beginner's mind. To appreciate that wonder and curiosity. You can know a lot, and that's fantastic. It's good to study and it's good to know. And to always appreciate the mind that got you there, that was curious and open and uncluttered. And also to come back to our self-acceptance, as Coatman spoke about. That practice is the candle in our darkest room. I love that image. If you light a candle in a very dark room, suddenly there's some possibility you can see a little further. And that starts with self-acceptance. And like in my comments about Jenny, when she could not find self-acceptance, she accepted others. And that was the entry point. Another on my list, and to not lose our self-sufficient state of mind. Not self-clinging, not self-referenced, not isolated self-sufficiency. But our true nature, which has everything in it, is not missing anything. And not to be dualistic. One of the other early most important things from Suzuki Roshi. To not get caught on the one side with our sorrows, on the other side with those moments of freedom. To continue to step further and deeper into life. We fail, and then we go deeper. To go beyond words and wonder, what is my own mind? Who am I? To go beyond words and understanding and step into wonder is the next on my list. Have we done that this week in moments? Hopefully with some of the stories and images and reflections. And by following the schedule and doing these difficult things, even the odious process of sitting, as Trudy spoke about, have we learned just a little bit more about choosing to make the unwanted wanted? Cooperating with the inevitable. Getting in the boat, knowing where it's going. Choosing even when it's rainy and blustery, choosing it when it's sunny and beautiful, choosing when it's rough, choosing when someone else wants to get in with us. And ultimately to say yes to life. Just like in training, we say yes to what the teacher asks of us and yes what the schedule asks of us. Say yes and see what happens. Not as a helpless servant, but a willingness to meet life. And with joy. This practice isn't about just reducing suffering, about the restoration of joy. And we do that sometimes with humor, to not take ourselves too seriously, even as we take it all quite seriously. But not take ourselves too seriously. Humor is making space where there was no space. And finally, practice dying. To practice dying. Letting go as we are today, as we finish. So those were the little high points that I just wrote down as I look back through our notes and listen to the talks, and maybe a summary of what we would reflect back to Suzuki Roshi, or some of those students. And I decided I would write a final statement to myself, or for myself really, that how would I say this? So this is just what I wrote in my journal. We sit in silence and stillness, within activity and movement, to express and resume our original nature, our boundless natural state. To do so very simply, allowing anything extra to fall away, is the embodiment of beginner's mind, which is the opening to big mind. Big mind, ordinary mind, self-sufficient mind, all beyond these words. The gateway to wonder and awe. From this place, we choose life as it is, cooperating with the inevitable, saying yes to life so full of joys and sorrows, as together we practice dying. So I wrote the statement to try to just get the essence, distill it. But then I remember distilling it further not long ago. Some of you have heard me say this. Someone asked me in kind of a funny and challenging way. They said, "Okay, at the end of the day, what does this all come down to? Come on, what's the bottom line?" And in that spirit, even though it was a bit strong and spare and cheeky to say it, I wanted to meet them in that same spirit. And I said, "Okay, it's like this. Okay, I'll live my life. I give up. Okay, I'll live my life." So please continue to join me as we live ours together. This is the one life we have. So what are your reflections? Is there one last time to meet in this way at this retreat on these days? Is there anything that you want to offer and share, ask, receive, complain about, challenge me about? Please do so.
Hi, Flint.
Hello. I can always count on you. Every time I'm in Lancaster, you always come up and talk to me. I love it.
Here I am again. Ah, I think I wept all the way through that talk.
I think I did too. I hope you could understand me with my strange American accent and weeping, but
It was really touching. Oh, I was just reflecting on this low risk activity. And the retreat for me has felt like really strong medicine.
yeah. Yeah, me too.
I got to the point today, I couldn't do it anymore. I had to leave the Zen door. And I went outside in the garden. And you know the beautiful beech tree?
Mm-hmm.
I took refuge under there.
The Copper Beach,
Yeah.
so beautiful.
And it was such a wonderful place to take refuge.
Mhm.
Such kind of shelter. The branches are almost reaching down.
Yeah, you can really go underneath.
Yeah. And I sat on the roots of the tree and I really kind of tried to make as much contact with it as I could.
Mhm.
I guess I felt like I faltered today.
Yeah. There's a huge oak tree in front of the Austin Zen Center in Texas, a kind of an oak we have there that's more than 100 years old. It's a glorious thing. And it stands in the front of the building. So we had a ceremony and the tree was ordained. It has a beautiful, huge rope around it that has some ceremonial things as if it's its rakasu, and offer the precepts, and the tree stands there unmoving, but going through the seasons. And it sounds odd, cultish, but it really makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess the way the roots are interconnected under the ground.
Hmm. So thanks for knowing that with the beach and going out and affirming it. So you left the Zendo, as it were, but you actually entered that one and invited the tree in. But you had to go out there to invite it because it was firmly planted.
Felt too much to stay in the Zendo.
Mhm. Sometimes we need that space, don't we? Spaciousness.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back online and thank you for being here. Hi, Declan.
Hi, it's been a while since I've spoken. Yeah, I think the thing that really struck me was Trudy's talk yesterday.
Mhm.
I've known Trudy for a long time, and I knew she found sitting uncomfortable. But when she shared the real torture that it can be to sit,
Mhm.
it touched me in a very deep place. And I was blown away with what she shared, and contrasted it with my own life. She said, we all have preferences, and of course, my preferences are for the world
Mhm.
to become a better place, and to stop all of the terrible things that are going on. And I think Trudy said at the end of the day, it's about they're just preferences, and the preferences don't matter. And of course, that's not to mean to say we don't work, but it's just we don't get caught by them, because I've fallen into this trap of being a typical middle-aged man that's got more angry and more grumpy and more disillusioned with the world as you realize it isn't going to fix the way you want it to.
Mhm.
And for me, yeah, it takes me beyond that. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have preferences, but it's made me go, oh yeah, they are the things that I do hold on to so tightly, and they are the things that make me very angry.
Do you remember, Duncan, if I can interrupt you for a moment? I know you know this. At the beginning of the Shin Shin Ming, the first line says, "The great way is not difficult for those who are unattached to their preferences."
Mm,
And I have preferences. They will never stop. It's important that you have preferences. You prefer that people are kind
mm,
and don't harm each other. You prefer that the environment is saved. Those are useful preferences. It's our attachment to them that brings us to suffering.
mm. Yes, yes, and I know how much I've suffered, and and it causes suffering for those around me too.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, we're all in that together.
And this year's been this realization that, well, I don't want that to carry on or to continue. And so, yeah, Trudy helped me with that.
Yes, good. Yeah, she was very, the vulnerability and the reality and the truth telling of our spiritual friends and our teachers is really important for us not to play like it's all okay and not lose sight of the freedom that's possible in the midst of it all. We're not going to get free from it all. We're going to get free in it.
Mm. Mm. So I might be able to, yeah, live with those things without descending into pointless and useless anger.
That's absolutely possible.
Mm.
I'm not going to do this very long, but is it okay if I read a couple of things to you really briefly? This is something that I was going to have in my talk, but I didn't. But now you've called, just so you know that I was thinking with you. And by the way, one of my teachers, Reb Anderson, you may know his name from,
Mhm.
someone asked him one time, what does it mean when we're sitting in Zazen facing the wall? And he said, oh, it means, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. That's what we're, so here, just a taste of what I was writing to myself. More and more these days, we find ourselves jolted and buffeted by life events all around us. Sometimes it seems like we're unexpectedly inhabiting a different world. We watch what is happening around us, listen to the news, stagger anxiously into a disturbingly altered reality, socially, economically, medically, politically. And it's difficult to find stable ground as everything changes with such frightening speed, and in ways that leave us fumbling for certainty where there is none. So why now, in this kind of world, commanding our attention and demanding our best efforts to sometimes simply survive, would we spend time reflecting on this slim volume of talks offered in someone's living room by an obscure Japanese priest 50 years ago? Because, and I hope you begin to notice, that tucked inside these deceptively simple and gentle teachings are powerful guides for how we can actually make our way through all of this. Our lives are being transformed in ways most of us never imagined. And I believe this is what Suzuki had in mind in his teachings. Nothing less than the transformation of our hearts and minds, our character, our world.
Thank you.
We have Helen.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, Flint.
I loved seeing your name on the first day because I thought, oh, Helen the Fifth, because Helen V.
Yeah, my initials are actually Helen the Fourth, HIV. But anyway, that's
don't want to put that.
another joke.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, obviously loads of feelings and emotions, and like you say, have gone deeper. So thanks to everyone and as teachers, especially Trudy and Josh, for holding it so well. And basically, I just wanted to say ditto what's just been said by Duncan about the preferences, and that really struck a chord because it's never entered my thinking, and I'll really benefit from that. And also the images of the flowers and trees and all that kind of stuff. I've been thinking about that a lot over the retreat, and it brought me to tears when you were speaking about it before, having the different stages, the bud, the bloom, and because I was doing that in the walking meditation today, and I actually could imagine my little face as a child on a bud, and then as when I was 20 on the blooming one, and then it changing, and yes, the span of a flower is shorter, I'm a bit longer, the tree is even longer, but we're all the same thing. And the fact that other people have had those thoughts again makes me think we are all the same.
Yes.
We're all the same thing. We have similar thoughts, and and we're just life unfolding. So yeah, that's really, the wind has definitely whistled through me on this retreat. So thank you. And Trudy said something interesting, because I really love science and stuff. And she said about there's like 400 genes that we have that are, just there in us, and only in certain environments do they get, activated. And I feel like this practice probably activates some. So thinking like that.
Right. Our spiritual genes.
Yeah. Or big mind together genes.
Exactly. That's a lovely way to think about it.
So
thank you, Helen.
We have Julia.
Hi, Flint.
Hello.
I'm stepping forward because one of the last things I said to Mary as I left the Zendo this evening was, I don't ever see myself being able to step forward and be on that camera.
Oh my goodness, and here you are.
And I've come home and I've sat here and I thought, so why are you so different from anybody else? And why are you making it so hard? And I can make connections with people when I'm face to face with them. And I've made some beautiful connections over the last 3 days. and I've shared so much with so many people, and I have been blown away by people's honesty and their openness and their ability to look closely into the heart of matters and say, yes, this matters to me, and wanting to name things. And so just this evening, I just want to name this, that yes, I'll step forward. Because really, it shouldn't be that hard, should it? It shouldn't be that hard, but it is.
Yeah, it runs into the face of those things that hold us back or whatever. How is it having stepped forward now?
Can I tell you later? It's
Sure.
okay.
Tell me now.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
I'll survive to live another day, to see another day.
Yeah, you definitely will. So I'm you're doing such a good job. Duncan called forward some of the talk I didn't give, and now you've called forward another part. Can I share that part with you?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I'm saying these things to myself. I'd written a bit about Zen mind, beginner's mind happening in the 60s, when things were like they were in the 60s. And talking about Suzuki Roshi was doing his best to offer something in a foreign culture, sharing his deepest understandings of Buddhism in a language he could barely speak. And like us, everything was on the line and nothing was easy, but everything mattered. And this is the part that you're coming forward brought to mind. And we can no longer hold those kinds of assumptions that we will have time to practice. And this practice will benefit us in positive and personal ways. And that we'll have the health and energy to do so in our beautiful and safe practice communities. We hope to create warm and connected sanghas and possibly do some good. But there's also a kind of false entitlement embedded in these assumptions. We're coming to understand this in many very real, immediate, and frightening and confusing ways. Because we've been jerked into attention, not only by much uncertainty, but also by the realization of our deep vulnerability and even our despair. And this is precisely what the Buddhist teachings address. There's no better time to practice than now. And beginner's mind is the right teaching for our time. Thank you.
Okay.
I do not underestimate the courage that it takes to step forward. Even though I'm doing it all the time, I get sort of used to it. But it doesn't mean I forget and that I don't appreciate the vulnerability. And I hope that when you do, I'm meeting you with the respect that's required for that coming forward and the vulnerability that it touches.
Looks like Shirley's coming forward.
Thank you, Julia. Actually, I'm thinking, I think it was Josh said at some point in the weekend, it's nobody's fault. It's not anyone's. Oh, how did it go? I had it in my head clearly. It was something like, it's everyone's fault and nobody's in particular.
Yeah, that's right. I was saying that, right?
That about coming up now.
Yes.
Everyone's fault.
And isn't that a blessing?
And sorry?
Isn't that a blessing?
It really is. It really is. Yeah. Feels
That
amazing.
as if their support and love after a while is irresistible.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was struck by what you said about practicing dying. And I thought, shit, that's what's been happening to me today. I feel like I've accidentally been practicing dying
Mm-hmm.
and felt in the sense of, I feel like I've spent most of the day leaking. Almost felt like candle wax just melting,
Mm-hmm.
the warmth and just beauty of everything that happens here.
Exactly. The sort of exquisite surrender.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And part of what's been my practice edge this weekend has been naming my commitment
Yes.
to, yeah. I
It's
just,
beautiful to hear that as so tender on the edge because, you know, we've heard that from several people, but from Trudy and from Judy and different people that come forward and say, I think I have to voice my commitment, you know?
yeah,
It's like we don't have, like I just read, we don't have time.
yeah, absolutely. Josh read a line that was, it was for a journal, which was what I know to be true right now.
Yes.
And with my small group, I was able to say, I believe in this. I am this. This is it.
Mhm. I'm home.
I'm home, definitely. Yeah. And this has been an amazing experience, being here with these guys and being with you on there.
And they're here with you. You're part of that experience. It would not, you know, clearly I'm not needed, yet I find myself becoming something of inextricable value. You get that now. You know, if you weren't there, it would have gone on. But because you're there, you're of this inextricable value and showing it and embodying it, expressing it right now.
Yeah. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
This feels a bit like you know, someone going to the doctor and saying, I'm here on behalf of a friend. And the friend I'm here on behalf of is the wonderful John Coatman, and we celebrated his head studentship, his completion.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
So I wanted to let you know that, and you read your Benji poem. And what I was wondering is if Gill, who is online tonight, would come forward and read her Benji poem.
Oh, that would be such a gift.
John. So I'll step back, and if Gill could appear, that would be just wonderful. And we've had such a beautiful ceremony today.
Yeah, I'm so glad. In the midst of doing all these things, I feel very bad about not remembering and mentioning it. I feel very remiss. So thank you for your help.
It's easily done. There is so much happening, but I didn't want to miss this wonderful opportunity of celebrating our friend. So
And here's Jill.
It's in the car. I raced from Lancaster to Sheffield. It's in the car. It'll take me 1 minute to go and get it. So talk amongst yourselves.
Please go get it.
John, would you like to just come
And you know, one of the things that I really miss also is that beautiful, the ceremony is really beautiful, the completion ceremony. And to as many times as I've enacted it with people, it's always beautiful and it's always wonderful. And that those moments where students who love the head student and who want the best for the head student and are encouraging the head student stand before him and ask a question or make a statement with no worry that you're going to get it right or it doesn't matter. just the coming forward. How was that, John?
The questions
Your experience
of, sorry,
coming forward to you. Questions.
People coming forward to me. It was, I was wondering how it would be. Of course I was. And it was wonderful.
Yes.
Meeting these people I know and love, and being so lovely to standing in front of me, and feeling able, being very grateful for the fact that I felt able to sit with the question for a few moments and see what arose.
Yeah, just remaining upright, that's all.
Yeah. So that's how it was, or part of how it was.
And thank you for holding this seat as head student, sharing the seat with me and with Josh and all the other teachers. Because it's not a small thing, and I appreciate your willingness and commitment in doing so.
And it has been a marvelously rich time, and one of the questions was, what has been your favorite part, or what have you enjoyed during the year? And my response was, it's not, not one thing, but particularly all of the three more formal aspects of the role of meeting people for tea is delightful. And giving one or two Dharma talks when Dharma talks have appeared for me, and presenting my beloved IFS in the so a wonderfully rich time.
That's great. It's I just echo in my mind the famous statement by Martin Buber, all real living is meeting.
Yes, indeed.
So now let's hear the Benji.
Thank you. In your dreams, doubts folded in on themselves over and over, each crease and every turn of the paper, until emerging a crane, an eagle. You have led us past ancient text and obscure koans, walked us through bells and sticks, to the unfolding of compassion, where our hearts turned to stare. You lifted the veil from parts, showed us the meeting rooms of our inner chaos, handed us a mediator to understand, soften, and ease. Our exiled and unloved parts, those told to rein it in or do it differently, your wisdom showed them freedom to dance and play. There are no mistakes to forgive. Rather, we have a desire to offer back to you the uncovered love, fledged fragments, now honoured, heard and met. Hope, a thing of feathers, compassion, a thing of parts.
I have a humble request, as if you would allow me to have a copy of the poem, and if you and John would allow me to teach from it.
Of course.
Because it's through you, it's also from John, isn't it? And it's so beautiful, and it encompasses so much. I would be honored to use it as a teaching vehicle. And it's alive right now. It's so alive. So I don't want to I don't want to miss it. And then it allows it to move through me so I can have an experience I didn't get to have by not being in the ceremony, like we're doing now. It's very helpful to me. It means a lot. So I wish I could do my full prostrations to you too. Thank you.
Oh. Thank you. It's been an amazing experience, being Benji and being on this retreat. And you said a phrase once when I very first met you, Flint, saying, "Oh, this practice will tenderize you." And I've been really tenderized. And it's strong medicine, and it really is strong medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd just like to add just how wonderful it has been with Gill as my Benji.
Mm-hmm.
As usual, I haven't, the words just sort of drift into the sand, but just really, really, really wonderful. And I'm so grateful to you, Gill. And,
I see it on your face and I hear it in your voice.
That's enough then.
Yeah. What a wonderful companion, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, Josh, thank you for inviting this and also for holding the space for the ceremony. And for all of you that held the space and supported John so that he could express himself and embody that completion ceremony. It's really powerful. Any final comments or before we do our final chant? Appreciations?
Thank you so much, Flint, for these very precious 3 days together. Thanks so much to everybody who's been hearing the story and joined us online in the evening in this wonderful community. And I know that the companionship and the teachings and the time we've spent together will resonate for a long time. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you holding the space and all of you making this possible. I know it's a lot of work. I was also, this is a small, tiny thing to the side, but I was thrilled as I saw you approach the chair. And as you approach the chair, unselfconsciously, you put your hand over your ragasu and you sat down. It's like, oh, he's starting to attend to it unselfconsciously, but in the ways that it's becoming part of you.
Thank you. It does feel that way.
Yeah, and I could see it in a way that I hadn't seen before. It's like, oh, it's just natural.
Yeah.
It's just happening now. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I would suggest that we, I can screen share the final chant for us to complete. Would that be okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Now I found it again. So we will do the last piece here, okay? Together. And I will mute myself so it doesn't make strange noises, and we'll hear the congregation there in the story.
May our intention equally permeate every being and place with the true light of good as well. Beings are endless, I vow to freedom. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. When the gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings among us, I vow to believe them. Illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to enter them. Dark gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. To embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dark gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
So it's so perfect that you remember Dogen's expression of being a priest is one continuous mistake. And when I made this morning, I copied and pasted in the 3 times, and then I forgot to go back and change we.
Yes.
Like, oh, right at the end, after all this goodness,
Yeah.
wonder is how we end. So
We kept to what was on the screen.
I thought you, yeah, I know. My apologies for that, but you were wholehearted in offering it.
Yeah, we did our best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Flint.
Yes, I look forward to what comes next.
Well, we will see you in October in the fall.
Yes.
And,
Buddha willing.
we'll see you on Tuesday.
Right, yes. Goodbye.
Thank you, Flint. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
You can unmute if you like to say bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Brilliant people. Bye.
Bye.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, Mary Ellen. Or see y'all, as you say in Texas, Chris.
See y'all. You
See
betcha.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Night, everybody.
Bye, Trudy.
Rest
Bye.
well.
Rest
Rest
well.
soon. Bonne nuit.
Bonne nuit, tout le monde. Je vous aime.